Welcome back to Cooking with John. Today we're going to be making Peruvian chicharron. There's a lot of different styles of chicharron out there. People consider the fried pork rinds chicharron. There's also pork belly, deep fried, skin on. That's also considered chicharron in some places. But today I want to focus on how Peruvians typically do it. This is how I'm used to it, and it's one of my favorite preparations. Don't get me wrong, I love fried pork belly with skin on. I will eat that all day long. In fact, that's how I got this way. So, without further ado, what we have is pork spare ribs. So, a thing about pork is if you can get it locally sourced from a small farm, definitely do it. If you're in Vermont, a friend of mine, Jackson Gillette, small farm raises his pork, and it is fantastic. I suggest you take a look at his stuff. I'll post some information for him down below after the video. But unfortunately, I don't have that kind of access to pork right now here. But in the future, I will, and we'll do stuff on that when the time comes. So right now, I just have some pork spare ribs that I picked up. If you always want to get bone in, because that's usually the best way to buy it. For what we're going to be doing. You want to have some with a nice fat cap on it because you really need it to produce a lot of that fat when you're cooking. You're not looking for a lot of marbleization in the meat. You're looking for typically a solid color throughout. Anyway, first thing we need to do is we need to get a marinade on this. I have got a couple of ingredients that we're going to do this with. It's going to be lime, garlic, and that's typically all you really need: lime, garlic, and salt. I add a couple of things to it, but we'll just do those three basic ingredients for this marinade today, just to keep it easy and traditional. All right, so we'll get started by cutting up the meat first. Big chunks are the best. You're going to cook them low and slow, so you want them to be nice and big, and then you can pull them apart when you eat them. That was pretty quick, right? So, whenever I buy pork, even if it's locally sourced or not, I'll always give it a wash. After your pork has been washed, you let it drip dry for a few minutes, just so that you're not adding so much water into the marinade. So, when we marinate this with the lime, the salt, the garlic, essentially what we're ending up doing is creating a brine. That's really what a brine is made of, water, salt, acid, and sugar, but we're not adding the sugar. There are inherently sugars in meats. That is what the searing is when you pan-sear a piece of meat, is the sugars coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and start prep on the marinade, okay? So 2 cloves of garlic. I used a microplane just because it's consistent. Again, compost, very important. I love my compost. I have 3 limes on the table. We're only using 2 because when you marinate your pork, it's also important to make the accompaniment, which I'll get to in a second. Be generous with your salt. There's quite a bit of pig here. That was probably about 2 tablespoons. We're going to end up adding more when we cook it. So we'll go ahead and we'll just get the pork in there right now. Mix it all up. I like to mix until I start to see the reaction of the lime on the meat, and that is when you start to see the fat and the cut marks turning white. And that is typically when I'll stop the mixture, which is about there. Okay? Aluminum foil. Wherever possible, use it. The less plastic we put in the landfills, the better off we are. Okay? So, cover your pork. We're going to put this in the refrigerator for a few hours until we're ready to start cooking. You can do this the night ahead This makes a great breakfast as well. Do it with some fried plantains and some eggs. Typically delicious. So, I'm gonna go right in the fridge with that. Now we're back for the accoutrement. This is gonna be called salsa criolla. This is very traditional, goes with a lot of dishes down in South America. It's just a red onion sauce, essentially. Very, very easy. Onions, lime, salt, chili, cilantro. That's it. So we'll take the onion, slice it up nice and thin. Onions are cut. What you want to do now is you want to put them in a bowl and give them a wash. Whenever you cut an onion, it always wants to make you cry, right? And that is just because of those juices splashing up in the air. Use a sharp knife. That'll help. Also, breathe through your mouth, not your nose. Keeps the juices away from your eyes. Onions are washed. I give them 2 rinses. I always leave a little bit of water in the bottom. The reason for that is if you eat anything spicy, you always realize that when you're done eating it and you drink water, it's spicier. And I love spicy. You'll hear me say it all the time. So, we're going to be using some chilies from my wife's hometown. These are charapita. I mentioned these in the ceviche video. Doesn't look very intimidating at all. Super hot. But I'm going to use 6 because I like spicy. Key to working with spicy things is touch them as little as possible. Just breaking those stems off, I'm already smelling it. It's in my nostrils. Like, oh, it's clean. Oh, it smells like where she's from, llamas. Oh my God. Oh. I'm also crazy. See, I will touch them. With small chilies like this, you can just smash them, and that works fine too. Right into the onions. All right. Another important thing when done working with chilies, give your cutting board a really good cleaning and let it sit aside for a while before using it for anything else. Considering all of this is going to go into the same bowl, I don't mind using the same cutting board throughout this process just to finish off the salsa criolla. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to put some fresh cilantro in there. I pulled this out of the garden this morning, so we'll get that cleaned up. It smells so good. And where my wife is from, a lot of the food there is very rustic. It is very rural, so you don't have to be so precise about everything. Sometimes, you know, so many people are like, everything has to be perfect and exact. You know, you don't need that, because sometimes it's those little mistakes that you might call that make the dish what it is. Like, this isn't chopped, but we'll put it in anyway, right? Who cares? Work cleanly. Now comes the lime. When you're using lime for juice, always look for the ones that have the shiny, smooth surface. If they aren't shiny or smooth on the surface, they're not going to produce much juice. You're going to end up squeezing the crap out of them, and you're just going to get nothing but pulp. Now, with the lime, the salt, the onions, a little bit of water, with time, this is going to sit there and it's going to make its own juice. That's why you start the sauce right now, so that by the time you are done with everything, the sauce has had the chance to marry all the flavors, and everything should be perfect by then. So, without further ado, see you in a couple hours. We'll get started on cooking that chicharron. Welcome back. It's been a few hours since we put the pork in the marinade. Actually, it's been about 5 hours. What we want to start talking about first is the pans that we use when we cook. Chicharron is something that needs to be cooked low and slow for a long period of time. So you would use something heavy and something that will retain heat for a long time. We are also going to be covering this while it cooks because we want to retain that moisture So it starts by steaming out the meat. That's going to kind of braise those pieces of pork. And if you look, I'll take this a little closer. You can see the structure. See, the structure has kind of changed of that pork. So when we cover it and cook it, that's going to put that moisture right into that pork, and it's going to keep it moist and going to make it so it kind of falls apart. But we also want to get it really crispy on the outside so it's got crunch but also maintains moisture. So like I said, we're going to use a heavy duty pot. I have this beautiful Le Creuset. This was given to me as a gift from my wife for Christmas. So we are going to use this to cook our chicharron in. I think we should just get started. We're going to use what we call manteca, and that is the grease of the meats that we've been using to cook with previously. A lot of that has been chicharron. So I'll also show you that when we get over to the stove. All right? I kind of have to crouch down for this so you guys can see the pan, and I can give you instructions at the same time. So don't mind me while I hunch over, all right? We're going to get the pan started. A good rule of thumb when cooking is you don't always have to be on high. A lot of people cook on high. That's not the best practice. Control your heat. The best chefs know how to control their heat. So we're going to get this pan nice and hot though, so we want to start it on high just to get it hot. And we want to get there a little quicker. Here's the manteca. This is just fat that we've been able to render out of other meats, pork, chicken, you name it. We use it every time and we just strain it back out so it's always getting flavored. We're going to start by putting a couple ladles of this in here. It's a big pan, so we're going to put quite a bit of oil in there. And like I said earlier, when we marinated this, we're going to end up salting it again. But let's give it another stir because all that flavor has sunk to the bottom. In the meantime, while we wait, we can talk about that salsa criolla I made. It is ready. When I opened it, obviously it was a face full of the onion smell. Now that it's been open for a few minutes, it's mellowed out. Well, I get those chilies. I get that cilantro. Oh my God, that smells so good. Can't wait to put this on some of those chicharron. Another good way to have chicharron, and this is probably my favorite way to eat it, is to cook some sweet potato, put it on some fresh bread, a little bit of that salsa criolla, sandwich that up. Oh my God, my mouth is salivating already. It's my favorite way to eat that. Well, I'm just going to have it with some plantains tonight though. So by the looks of the oil, I'd say we're ready. You see that? There was a little bit of smoke that just crawled up the edge. So we're going to drop the temp way down to just about medium because we're going to start adding, but we don't want to drop the temp so bad that when we do add, the pan gets cold again. So we keep it at medium, and this is the part you got to be very careful with because these are wet, so this will splatter. All right, always make sure your pan is centered over the fire when you start heating it up so it's evenly distributed. Again, Splatter City, huh? Get down there and take a look at it, shall we? Ooh. Now that chicharrones are in the pan and they're simmering away, we're going to put that last little bit of salt on them that I said that we would do. This is a good opportunity to do that now because we also are going to cover it. And as I said, we were at medium on the temperature. We can kick that up just a little bit to maybe a medium high. We'll let that go for a little while. And because there's so much moisture in there, we really don't have to pay attention to it. We can kind of walk away from it. But I would set a timer for about 25 minutes. And you would probably be, they probably wouldn't be ready to turn, but it would definitely be time for you to be back. Another thing that I want to talk about real fast before I go is a lot of chefs will always tell you don't crowd a pan, and that is something that I will back up in certain instances. However, in this case, it is perfectly okay. The reason for crowding it all in there is those are going to shrink up a lot. We're going to have space in there again momentarily. Also, we want that in there so that they do steam themselves out. That is part of the process. That is one of the reasons why chefs will tell you not to crowd a pan, because you're not going to get that sear. But we're going to be cooking these for a while, so that sear is going to happen. All right, cool. See you soon. Thanks. Hey, welcome back. It's been about 22 minutes. So if I were doing this at home and I were you guys, maybe I would set the timer for about 15 minutes so you guys can come out here and just take a look. So let's dive into the pan, shall we? All right. Listen to that. Smell that. Oh. Look at the color. It's beautiful. Nice and golden brown. Like I said, the sugars are going to come out of the meats. There's definitely space left in here. We definitely got that sear. And as we rotate, you're going to find some that didn't get that sear that you wanted. And that comes down to rotation. So we'll take a lighter one and we'll swap it with a darker one, so that we can get that caramelization that we're looking for, okay? We're gonna end up searing them all on all sides, so we're gonna rotate them more than once. You'll see when they get finished. This isn't like steak where you flip it once and you're done. We're gonna make sure every edge gets a little bit of color, okay? So see you when they're done. All right, so we are off the oven now. I have the plantains in the pan on the stove, on the island. I have drained out the manteca, and I am about ready to start smashing these. I'll just give you a quick look, and you'll see that there's like all this goodness in the bottom of the pan, and that's what we're trying to collect. So as you can see, there is a lot of deliciousness left in the bottom of this pan, and very few plantains. Normally I'd be cooking that much chicharron for 5 people. So there'd be at least 4 or 5 plantains in here. I saved the manteca here in the jar that it came from. That was, as I explained earlier, there's more oil here now than there was before. And as I explained earlier, the reason for the more oil is because we left the fat cap on those pieces of chicharron. So now I'm going to use what is called a cachimazo. And this is just a big hunk of salt. Not a lot of salt really comes off of it, but it is still a really cool tool to use. So I still use a little bit. My doctors hate me. They have to, right? Maybe. I don't know. It's still so good. So we smash the plantain down. The key is to do this while it's warm. And then you just kind of rub it around a little bit to break up some of that deliciousness off the bottom. You can see right on the bottom there, it picked some up. So we'll put that right back into the plantain. We'll set that to the side. We're gonna pull it back. Tacacho, ladies and gentlemen, in America. Made by a gringo. I gotta try it, right? All of it. So, again, tin foil whenever you can, no plastic wrap. Look at that mountain of chicharron. And then we got the salsa criolla right here. So let's just pick that beautiful morsel right there. And now with the salsa criolla, there's a lot of this liquid in the bottom. And this is really where it's at. That's that onion and cilantro and chili flavor that you're looking for. I love the onions too, though, don't get me wrong. So we'll put a little of those down here too. Ooh. I have a feeling it's going to be really spicy. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Crunchy on the outside. All that moisture on the inside. Oh my God. These are so delicious. Look at this big old hunk of plantain with all those little bits of pork made with that pork fat. Oh my God. Can't eat better than this. You might be able to eat healthier. Can't eat better though, I'll tell you that. Oh. I know this video was long, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys get the chance to replicate this at home. And I hope that everybody gets a chance to try it. If not, and you live in Massachusetts, you want to make a trip to the house, give me a holler. We might be able to set something up. Figure it out, all right? Thanks again. Talk to you later.